Բարև ձեզ։ Գրադարանում այսօր զրուցում ենք ուկրաինական տեքստի org.ua նախագծի տվյալների մասնագետ Յուրի Մալախովի հետ։ Զրույցը լինելու անգլերեն, մենք կունենանք թարգմանություն հայերեն սուբտիտրերով։ Hello Yuri.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Thank you.
I don't remember even in what day of the war, more than 100. Tell me,
Yes.
how is your office doing? How are you are doing as a journalist? How are you working?
Well, I'm working from home most of the time. I'm back in Kiev. Our office is based in Kiev, but since February we've been all scattered all around the country, mostly in the western part. So, and me too. I went on the second day of war. I went to Lviv. Then I stayed in Lviv for a while. Then I traveled a little bit around Ukraine to visit my relatives, my mom. And now I'm back in Kiev, and half of our office is back in Kiev. And half of our office, some people, a lot of people are abroad. Some went to Turkey, some to Europe, So yeah, so we're all kind of scattered around and
work remotely.
Yeah, we work remotely, and it's kind of reminds the coronavirus times, but much harder and sadder,
As far as you are data analyst and your project is based on data, it's about data journalism. Tell us a little more about your project and your disinformation dashboard, and especially about how you monitor Russian disinformation.
At Texte, we started this project 4 years ago. It's a tool for journalists, media researchers, experts, anyone interested. It's a tool that allows you to track the narratives and trends of Russian disinformation, because we have a big problem with that here in Ukraine. Ukrainian language is it's similar to Russian a little bit, and a lot of people in Ukraine, they speak Russian and they understand Russian. So it's very easy for Russian propaganda. It's very easy to influence, or even I would say infect a Ukrainian media landscape with propagandist and disinformation stories. And so we created this dashboard to help counteract this malicious influence. And it works. So before this invasion of February 24th, we monitored 4 categories of websites. We monitored Russian mainstream media, Ukrainian mainstream media, and a subset of specific propagandist websites that appeared after 2014, after the invasion of Donbass has happened and the annexation of Crimea. And we also monitored Ukrainian clickbait sites. And we were able to see how these disinformation stories, how they travel from Russian mainstream sites or propagandist sites, how do they travel, and how do they get into Ukrainian websites. But then after February, it all has changed overnight, basically. a lot of Ukrainian clickbait sites, they became ultra patriotic, very pro-Ukrainian. They stopped sharing Russian disinformation. A lot of them has shut down, maybe because they were affiliated with some Russian spy networks here, or some Russian or pro-Russian political figures here in Ukraine. So it's all changed dramatically, and a lot of Russian websites got banned in Ukraine. And we decided, but still, people were interested in what do Russians thinks of this war? What do they think? How do they show it to their reader? How do they show it to their audience? Because the reasons for this war, the Putin's speech on February 24th, it didn't make any sense. You know, they didn't even declare a war. They said, "Oh, we are starting the process of
special operation,
to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine." And we're like, "What does it even mean to denazify?" So, you know, we became interested of how do they show to their readers, how do they explain it. We changed our model and changed our algorithm of detecting disinformation a little bit, and we started collecting Russian news solely so we started monitoring Russian mainstream media and that subset of propagandist websites we were monitoring earlier. And we saw that this work, you know, it allows us to track the mood of the Russian population. It allows us. We saw that it's Russian media. They're offering a completely distorted worldview to the Russians, and they sometimes they create a propagandist story that they later use to justify their actions in Ukraine, or like this famous, now I guess you've heard it, story about biological labs in Ukraine.
We have the same story, almost the same story here. We
so
that labs,
it first appears in the media, then they start bombing civil objects with their missiles, and then they claim, "Oh, we destroyed the biolaboratory," or "it was done to destroy biolaboratory." So, and before that, a few weeks before this missile strikes, you see more and more messages on this topic appearing in the media. Or like right now, they're developing this story that Poland wants to invade Western Ukraine, or Poland has already invaded Western Ukraine. What does it mean? I cannot tell you, but it's very worrying to see stories like that. And by monitoring Russian media, you can catch this early warning signs. You know,
it's easy to use your dashboard for ordinary users.
There's a search. There are several. So we monitor several grand topics of interest. So we monitor how do Russian media, how do they depict, how do they report on battle actions, on the war itself? How do they report the effects of war on their economy? What do they say about the sanctions? Yes. And what do they say about Ukraine? How do they show international news? What do they say of their neighbors and their enemies? So what do they say of Europe? What do they say of countries like Armenia and other countries, or Kazakhstan, for example, or Belarus? So these are grand topics where you can go on our dashboard and see, do they start talking more or less? So you can watch dynamics. And there is also a search. So if you're interested in a specific term, so for example, if you want to search what are they saying about some specific Armenian politician, you can just type in the last name of this politician in Russian. It just works for Russian language, and then you can track mentions of that politician in the news since the beginning of the war. Or if you use the historic version of the dashboard, we have a big database of the Russian news going back to 2019 actually.
Have you monitored the usage, the traffic? It's grown. I think it should be.
I can't. No, sorry, I don't have those numbers on me. But yeah, people are interested in that. We also produce weekly reports. So we download news on a weekly basis, and each week we produce a weekly report. People read them. It's not our hottest material on the website. We do much more interesting stuff. But still, people read them, and there's a good feedback. People on social media, they're saying, "Oh, thank you, it's interesting. I didn't know that." I discovered something new for myself. But this, I know that this dashboard, it's quite valuable for some governmental analysts or just other people studying Russia.
Researchers. Talking about the main website, how has journalism changed since the war in Ukraine started? What is your reflection?
All texts or all our articles just have to be about the war because that's what's happening, and it's all the stories people write there about the war, because it's hard to write about something else, and it's hard to do any projects on something else than the war. So the journalism in Ukraine is now, it's 90-95% about the war and how it reflects on people, its influence on business, economy, just some people, human stories, people's stories. And it's sad but what can we do? We can't do anything. I guess a lot of journalists, they have become some sort of military experts now, learning all different types of armored vehicles and different missiles, and looking into maps constantly, trying to understand what's going on. The guys in our newsroom, they, I guess they didn't expect it from themselves, how well they would become familiar with all these military topics. And yeah.
Ukrainian journalism overall, it stays objective, or it helps country to fight Russia back? I mean, what do you think?
We're not trying to hide anything or conceal anything. It's harder though, because because we're living under martial law now, and there may be censorship, but it's still like, if we have an important story to report, we're gonna do that. When I was in Lviv and Russian troops were attacking Kyiv, there is this small, I guess you've heard of the town of Irpin.
Yeah.
They occupied it, and there's a river called Irpin.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the start of the war, there was a dam on this river, and it was blown up. Later, we found out that it was the Ukrainian troops who's done it. So they've blown up the dam, and the river flooded the land around it, and it created like a natural barrier for the Russian troops. And I saw it I saw on Twitter some like webcam footage of this, and I didn't believe it. And I went to the NASA, I guess, website. So I went to check the satellite images.
Yeah, geolocated.
Yeah, so I geolocated it, and then I went to check the satellite images, and I was surprised. I was stunned. Wow, like the river has flooded. Like really, I was impressed by the scale of it. And I told it to our editor, and we discussed it, and we decided to publish a small article on that. It was maybe March. Yeah, it was early days of March, so the Russians were still around Kyiv, and we published a small article, and we posted it on our website, and it became very popular. Some officials have called our editor, and they were like, what are you doing? Russians are around Kyiv, and they will see your article and it will help them just to advance. And we're like, well, what the heck, it's just satellite images. They're open source. If we know that, Russians probably know that too. But anyways, we took it down from our website, and then we re-edited it a little bit. I just changed some wording and posted again a few days afterwards. And we just added a note that all this imagery is taken from open source. So, just there is no problem with that. So next time it was fine. But there are problems like that sometimes. Sometimes because of there's a martial law, and sometimes if someone doesn't like something, they can pull you and just, I guess, ask not to help the enemy or whatever. But generally these conflicts, they resolve very quickly, and they're not conflicts at all.
What is your advice? How to fight against disinformation during the war?
Just don't. It's my advice to the government would be, I guess, or to whom? Advice to whom?
To journalists. To journalists.
Journalists just to have to do their job. I think journalists just have to stay objective. Just have to dig deeper for the facts and just report the facts, and just do their job, I guess. Journalists just have to stay good at their job. And for the government, I guess it's they don't need to. I understand why there's wartime censorship. Some information is very sensitive, and some information can stir emotions. I understand that, but so you have to be. But you can't stay silent, I guess. You still have to communicate with the society.
In your opinion, what is the main disinformation trend from Russia?
Right now, there's a lot of disinformation going on around the topic of grain and Ukrainian grain exports, and how the West is going to starve Ukraine, how the West is going to rip off Ukraine of our profit. I don't know. It's just these stories, they're completely wild. Stories about it's getting a little bit old, but the narrative of Ukrainian Nazis, how we're all Nazis in here, they still keep pushing these stories out to the Western audience. I guess their tactics are they push a lot of anti-American propaganda. So they want to create like conflict inside Europe, and they want to create a divide. So they play on this anti-American sentiments that may be present in Europe. Their work is targeted for every country. We did the research on disinformation trends in various countries around the world, and we specifically focused on Central and Eastern Europe, and their narratives are quite targeted for each country. Some countries in Europe which Russians think are extremely hostile to them, and these are countries like Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Sweden, Finland. Oh, but actually, with this, recently you've heard that Sweden and Finland, they wanted to join NATO. I was surprised, because we expected that we will see some very harsh rhetoric towards Finland and Sweden, but it was actually very, it was aggressive, of course, but it was not as aggressive as they when they talk about Poland, for example. Maybe because they see Finland and Sweden as countries with high military potential, and they don't want to piece them off. I don't know.
Do you have advice about how to fight back disinformation? How resile Russian disinformation?
You just have to develop good quality media in your country, in your own language, and just be good at fact checking. Be good at just don't blindly trust what Russians publish on their media, because they publish a lot of false information, a lot of they distort. It's very hard, because the strange thing is, they report on an event, and this event, it may be true it's the most dangerous thing. They take a grain of truth and they distort it and blow it up to enormous proportions. For example, something has happened. There was a minor conflict somewhere with Ukrainian refugees in Europe. it's okay. Things like that happen. There's a lot of people, people were stressed. A lot of people came to other countries. It can be, or there are huge lines for help, or there may be huge lines to get registered somewhere. It's natural. There will be conflicts. Someone can film that, right? But they take one incident and they blow it up to an enormous proportion, like all Ukrainian refugees, Ukrainian hordes of Ukrainian refugees are flooding Europe. They behave completely disgusting. Europeans hate them, and so on and so on. You base your report on a true fact, but you distort it so much and just make it so false that it creates a completely alternative picture, far away from the reality, how it is, you know. So my advice is just to stay good at fact checking. Don't trust them. Develop a good quality journalism.
Thank you, Յուրի.